ॐ अज्ञानतिमिरान्धस्य ज्ञानाञ्जनशलाकाय चक्षुरुन्मिलितमेन तस्मै श्रीगुरवे नमः। नमो नमो अनिरुद्धाय हृषिकेश इन्द्रियात्मने नमः परमहंसाय पूर्णाय निवृत्तात्मने स्वर्गपवर्गद्वाराय नित्यं शुचिसदे नमः। नमः नमः हिरण्यवीर्याय चातुहोत्राय तान्तवे। हरे कृष्णा 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 हरे हरे, हरे राम 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 हरे हरे. Hare Krishna. Thank you very much for joining me. And this is the second session in the series where we are going to be discussing the Madhurya Kadambini. In the previous session, which was on Monday, we discussed the glories of Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur, who was the author of Sri Madhurya Kadambini. And we spoke about the extraordinary complex environment in which Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur appeared, and the very specific role that was played by him in the continuation of the mission of Lord Chaitanya. And we also spoke of the extraordinary personality that Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur was. We spoke about the very special mercy that he had received, the special appearance and instruction by Lord Chaitanya, the very special instruction by Srimati Radharani on the Kama Gayatri, and then his being given the Govardhan Shila, which was worshipped by Raghunath Das Goswami, and also the very special manifestation of his potency while he was translating the Srimad Bhagavatam. And the reason why we spent some time in the previous session talking about Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur was to impress upon our hearts the extraordinary role that he is playing in our lives in 2015. The modern day Gaudiya Vaishnavas, they are impacted so much by Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur because we are completely dependent on the mercy of Srila Prabhupada, and Srila Prabhupada drew heavily from the writings of Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur, and including our prayers, the Samsaradava prayers. We start our day in Mangalarati with the prayers that have been written by Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur. So we wanted to provide a context. And the reason for the context is that when we take on a contextual view of the writings of an Acharya, in the context of his environment, the challenges that he faced, the surrender that he displayed, the mercy that was reciprocated by the Supreme Lord, the Divine Couple, and other Acharyas, when we start understanding the personality in that mood, then his writings become very special. They become more involved, and we also have the ability to relish the writings in a deeper sense. And we're also able to call upon him for help, because on our own, it's very difficult for us to understand such writings, because these are very confidential matters. Confidential, not secretive. These are confidential matters because, these are all subject matters and discussions that are only shared with those who have experienced deeper faith or who have been given mercy by the parampara to a deeper extent. And as a consequence, it's not meant for everyone. It's not for open discussion. As a consequence, it's called confidential. So we should understand that when we discuss these things, it is confidential. It should not be taken lightly. It should not be discussed whimsically amongst any form of gathering. It should be taken seriously, because these are topics that are supposed to be discussed with great care. Okay? In fact, these are topics that elaborate on the most intricate aspects of devotional service. And it is like the example that one can give, that the relationship between a husband and wife is confidential. Everybody knows that the husband and wife have private relationships, but it is confidential. Okay, it's not a secret. Everybody knows that a husband and wife have, confidential relationships, but then that's confidential. So that's the difference. The difference is that this is not to be shared, in a public forum. It's not something which is to be shared openly and so on and so forth, but it is more to be understood, relished, and then it is to be used by sadhakas to deepen our own practice. So my own objective of being able to read is for my own purification and appreciation, because when we choose to share, then some deeper realizations do come through, because the acharyas, they believe, that we are becoming instruments, and as a consequence, based on our sincerity, they lend a hand, and so we also become receptacles or receivers of special mercy from the writers of these scriptures. And it also helps the Sangha, because in the previous few sessions for the last 2 months, we spoke of Sri Harinam Chintamani. We spoke of the necessity for surrender to the holy names. We spoke of how important the practice of chanting without offenses is. We also were quite astonished in the writings of Srila Haridas Thakur, because we saw that even the holy name, which is being spoken, whimsically, in other words, it is being spoken without someone knowing its meaning, even by those who follow the Islamic faith. Namabaz has the ability to take one and grant liberation, what to say of chanting the pure name. So we got very deep into understanding and appreciating the intricacies of being able to chant the holy names. And that was very purifying in our being able to understand and embrace our faith. You see, what we have been given, being able to embrace something so special that has just come upon us. So in tradition, once we have received the holy name, now we need to know how we can, really take part and be able to remove, the blocks that we have and be able to move forward. We also need to be able to set aside milestones, which was a topic in the previous session. We wanted to know milestones, because without milestones, to enthuse ourselves is very difficult. We say the objective of pure devotional service is to attain pure devotional service of Prema Bhakti. But then, it seems quite obscure, or it seems to be theoretical for most part, unless you break it down and say that there are stages and there are milestones, and here, work on this first. And then once you accomplish this, then you have this waiting for you. And once you accomplish that, you have this waiting for you, and so on. And the process of bhakti, as given by Lord Chaitanya, by our acharyas, is extraordinarily scientific, because if it works for me, it works for you, it works for the other person. Whoever takes it sincerely would be able to experience its effects. And that's the reason why we are able to document and we are able to discuss stages. You see, you cannot really discuss a stage of evolution in spiritual practice unless there's consistency in experiences. So our acharyas have experienced it. They have experienced in the sense that their anubhava is pratyaksha praman. You see, they have experienced it through their spiritual senses. Their senses have experienced it. They have understood the extraordinary potency of the holy names. They have understood the extraordinary potency of, bhakti, specifically as given by Lord Chaitanya. They have understood it. And since they have had pratyaksha, which is first-hand, experience, their faith is very deep, because experience is the ultimate proof of faith. One may have faith, but then when they experience, the faith is solidified. That experience is what we are drawing upon, and then they are writing to us. Okay? So now when they start telling us that this is what they experienced, and then you have this consistency across the board in different scriptures. Okay? It's not just in the experience in let's say one particular scripture. It's not the experience of Srila Haridas Thakur. It's not the experience of Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur. It is the experience across the board in many, many instances across in Sri Chaitanya Charitamrita. It's the experience across the Srimad Bhagavatam when you read in different stages, in different yugas, different avatars even, different avatars, and the mellows may change. For most part, the avatars, they kind of deal with dasya, but even then, we experience this extraordinary, connection or consistency in scriptures. See, religion or religious scripture in general, there has to be consistency between scripture, the sadhu who experiences scripture, and the guru who is monitoring both, trying to tell them that your experience is valid, or your experience has to be modified, who is instructing them on the experience. When the experience is consistent across sadhu, shastra, guru, which is a tripod, then such an experience becomes documented, and we can draw upon it and we can build upon it. Okay? Which is the reason why these books are so important, because the Madhurya Kadambini is an extraordinary book, or rather, it's an extraordinary essay. It's a short essay, but it has such deep subject matter, because it encapsulates and captures, very, very deep subject matters in our bhakti process. That this basically allows us to experience our own process in a more, live form. We become in for it, saying, okay, there's so much to look forward to. It is exciting. This is something which one can dedicate their life for because it's exciting. One has to be excited, otherwise you cannot dedicate your life to maintaining the four regulative principles, which is the fundamental understanding of most people is that they have come into spirituality as, oh, I am following the regulative principles. Well, I'm not eating onion and garlic. It's a big deal. Okay. But that's not the summum bonum of spiritual experience. Spiritual experience has nothing to do with regulative principles, even though the regulative principles help us. It helps the sadhaka in being able to carry forward in the sadhana. But in reality, is that the goal? No. The material mode of goodness is not the goal. Peace is not the goal. Vegetarianism is not the goal. Don't misunderstand me. Being vegetarian is very important. Being a complete, dedicated, honorer of Krishna Prasadam, Bhagavad Prasadam is ultimately most important in a part of our, experiences in sadhana. But is that the goal of life, to be a vegetarian? Is that the goal of life for us to be propagating non-violence to or ahimsa to animals? No. We are not any of that, right? We do not want to get distracted or thinking that even though those aspects of human existence are important, we do not want to get distracted by those. We have all of those quite easily because we don't really spend too much time wanting to be vegetarian. We are vegetarian, and we don't even feel enthused about eating food cooked in the best restaurants in the world because we have tasted prasadam, which has been tasted by Krishna. So understanding that we have milestones, and our milestones are distinct, and our milestones are far, far more liberating than the mode of goodness. That is something which is very important. That is what Sri Madhurya Kadambini offers us. It allows us to understand and gives us knowledge so that we can understand our own experiences, so that we can calibrate ourselves. Okay? So that's the purpose. And we spoke about it the previous week. I just wanted to summarize, and then we're going to go on to the first topic, which is called the first shower of nectar. Why are they calling it the shower of nectar? You see, Kadambini, everybody knows Madhurya. Madhurya is nectarian sweetness. Okay? Madhurya is nectarian sweetness. But what is Kadambini? Kadambini is actually a group of very intense clouds that come together and spontaneously shower this very sweet nectar upon us. And it is quite sudden. Okay? And that is Kadambini. So it's Madhurya, sweetness, and Kadambini, where we're going to examine these different showers of nectar. And by the time we finish this process, hopefully we would change quite dramatically. It could be transformative for all of us. Those, for someone like me who is trying to share, and someone like you who is participating and enthusing, the person who is trying to share, with your special participation. Okay, so it is both. Now I just want to read the Mangala Charana, and after reading the Mangala Charana, which is the first verse, we will just get into the discussion of the first shower of nectar. Hridvapre navabhakti sasya vitatehe sanjeevani swagama rambe kamata pratudahadamani vishwapagola siniduran memaru sakhinopi sarasi bhavya bhuyat prabhu Sri Chaitanya Kripa Nirankusa Mahamadhurya Kadambini. The translation: the mercy of Sri Krishna Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is an uncontrollable cloud bank of exquisitely sweet nectar, whose sudden appearance fully rejuvenates the grains of ninefold bhakti in the field of the heart. So ninefold bhakti as a process, Navavida bhakti, we call it, as a process, is a process that we follow. But then who is going to enthuse it? The enthusiasm for it is going to be coming from the mercy of Sri Krishna Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, is an uncontrollable cloud bank of exquisitely sweet nectar, whose sudden appearance fully rejuvenates the grains of ninefold bhakti in the field of the heart. So the sowing of the seeds of bhakti is action. You see, when we start acting in the principle of Navavida bhakti, The Lord, because of his costless mercy, ahaituki, one which without a cause, he showers this nectar upon the field of our heart when we put in the effort. Okay? And that particular effort, in combination with the extraordinary shower of nectar, which is completely costless. And why is it called costless? We'll be going into this. It is called costless, ahaituki, because it is disproportionate. Our effort and the nectar and the shower of extraordinary potency that's being bestowed upon us by Lord Chaitanya is disproportionate. It's costless in terms of being able to attribute that our action led to him reciprocating. The answer is no, because our own action is disproportionate. It's very, very minuscule. It's minor compared to the extraordinary shower of nectar which Sri Krishna Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, uncontrollable. It is uncontrollable. This possibly specifies Lord Nityananda. He is uncontrollable, and he is the source of all nectar which is being given by Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. It is in the hands of Balaram. It is in the hands of Nityananda Ram. So he is actually showering everyone with his extraordinary nectar, and then it is actually costless, ahaituki. He is distributing it indiscriminately, and he is also, sowing, then putting all this nectar on the field of our heart. And if we have already sown in the heart Navavida Bhakti, the 9 different forms of bhakti, then those seeds fructify because this nectar is coming forth and it is extraordinary, it's very potent. And then what happens when the nectar hits our heart? When the nectar hits the heart, which has the seeds of Navavida Bhakti already sown by our actions, it extinguishes the burning summer heat of lust. What is lust? Lust is our hankering for aspects of material life which are unconnected, disconnected from Krishna. When we want to gratify our senses and we want to satisfy our senses, then it is lust. When we want to satisfy Krishna's senses, it is love. And bestows rapture. Okay, rapture is great happiness. Someone is just bursting with happiness, bursting with enthusiasm. To the universal river of living beings, universal river of living beings. It's without discrimination. From far off, may those clouds of the Lord's mercy give satisfaction and pleasure even to this worthless soul, a dried up tree in the desert. Wow. And this is the first verse. Okay, what are we going to look forward to? Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur's Mangalacharana is so potent, where he is touching upon it, and he is already saying that Krishna, or Chaitanya, very specifically Lord Chaitanya, you bestow your extraordinary mercy upon us, and that mercy, when it lands on our heart, then the seeds of Navavida Bhakti that are sown in the heart will then fructify, and that fructification would eliminate all forms of heat, distress produced by lust. Heat, distress produced by lust, it just completely dissipates, and then it bestows upon us the cooling grace of coming under the shelter of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Okay? So now he is calling himself a worthless soul, a dried up tree in the desert. He's calling himself a dried up tree in the desert. So the last verse is very nice. Sri Krishna, Sri Chaitanya Kripa, Nirankusa, Mahamadhurya Kadambini. Sri Chaitanya Kripa. Okay? It's very exciting to read when you see Lord Chaitanya's Kripa being taken up, because it's really ahaituki Kripa is Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's Kripa. Who would imagine that? Okay? Though previous Mahajanas, Prahalad, Dhruva, Kumaras have taken up the path of bhakti, I constantly pay my obeisance to Srila Rupa Goswami, the Lord's dear one, by whose mercy one now attains the intelligence to see bhakti in the complete rasa form. Srila Prabhupada, in the Nectar of Devotion, speaks about rasa. When he begins and talks about rasa, which is again, Nectar of Devotion is Srila Prabhupada's commentary, the purports of Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu of Srila Rupa Goswami. And Srila Prabhupada talks about rasa, he compares this rasa to a mango. He says that, different people get attracted to different varieties of mangoes. And we are very attracted to the mango because it has a special rasa. Now it's mango season, you see. And, sometimes when we are in America, if there is one thing that we do truly miss is the mango season. Because, it's very difficult to get the variety of fruits we have in India during the mango season, as we would, it's very difficult to get. And I'm also noticing this time in summer when I was over in India, it's not so good. It is not as good and as what do you call it? The variety and all the taste and so on and so forth. It was not as wonderful as it was when we were all children and we were growing up. Perhaps the memories were a little different. Maybe the varieties have gotten mixed up. But anyway, coming to the topic, we were talking about rasa, and rasa is basically taste, relationships, taste. So Srila Prabhupada compares rasa with the mangoes and the very specific nectar of the mangoes that we're very attracted to. Different people are attracted to the different varieties, and they are attracted very specifically to the taste of the nectar which is there. Similarly, the comparison then goes to Krishna, who is Akhila Rasamrita Sindhu. At his lotus feet, one may be able to experience all forms of nectar because he is the sum total. He is the ocean in which all different rasas surrender. As a consequence, we are able to experience rasa fully when one is connected to Krishna, and that is the comparison which is being given here. It is said that I constantly pay my obeisances to Srila Rupa Goswami, the Lord's dear one, by whose mercy one now attains the intelligence to see bhakti in the complete rasa form. Actually, the breakdown of rasa, the breakdown of the relationship with Godhead, and the extraordinarily elaborate commentaries offered by our acharyas, we have to be indebted to even come in touch with such mercy. Because this elaborate breakdown, I doubt if it's available elsewhere. This kind of level of detailed breakdown of experiences, detailed breakdown of milestones, detailed breakdown of what one is supposed to experience, and so on and so forth. It's extraordinary. So Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur is referring to Srila Rupa Goswami because he has commented on this particular verse from Srila Rupa Goswami's Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu. The two verses of which can be found in Madhya Leela, chapter 23, verse 14 and 15. Chaitanya Charitamrita. Adau Shraddha Tata Sadhu Sango Bhajana Kriya Tato Anartha Nivritti Syat Tato Nishta Ruchis Tata Atashakti Bhava Premad Budyanchati Sadhakanamayam Premnaha Pradurbhave Bhavat Kramaha. These are the 8 lines. Okay. First, Shraddha, Sadhu Sangha, Bhajana Kriya, Anartha Nivritti, Nishta, Ruchi, Ashakti, Bhava. 8. And then Bhava is the beginning of Prema. As Bhava condenses, one experiences Krishna Prema. Okay? The condensation of Bhava is Krishna Prema. Now, what is being given here as these 8 different stages is the subject matter of Madhurya Kadambini. We're going to go into it one by one. But in the first chapter, which is the first shower of nectar, the focus is not so much on Shraddha, faith. We're going to talk about faith in the subsequent session or subsequent chapter. The next shower of nectar is faith, Shraddha. The first shower of nectar is focused on the quality of bhakti itself. How does one understand bhakti? Does Krishna provide bhakti? What is the cause of bhakti? Is there material action which brings forth bhakti? In other words, do I commit some pious activity and become qualified as someone who is in line to receive bhakti? Do I perform any other activity and I become qualified? And the acharyas say no, because if material activity becomes the pre-qualification for bhakti, bhakti is subservient to material activity. That is not the case. Okay, they are disqualifying activity which is performed in this particular world, material activity specifically. Okay, and then the next is they're saying, is Krishna capable of giving bhakti? In the sense, is it Krishna's mercy which is supposed to give us bhakti? That's the next argument which is being put forth. It's quite interesting. And then they find that Krishna does not come until bhakti comes first. In other words, Krishna is preceded, not succeeded by bhakti. If it were to be succeeded by bhakti, then one can say that Krishna is the cause of bhakti. Okay? But we find that bhakti exists in the heart of the individual. Krishna is attained after such bhakti comes into the picture. So they're also reaching a conclusion that Krishna is not the cause of bhakti. Pretty amazing. And then they start thinking, how is it possible that Krishna, who is subservient to his devotees, which is a fact, to Krishna becomes subservient to those who are in prema bhakti? See, if we talk about Vatsalya in the sense that out of the Dasya, Sakya, Vatsalya, Madhurya, Dasya is servitude, which is the servants of Krishna in Vraja. They have a relationship with Krishna and they love him. There's Rati, and that Rati, that love, is in the form of being a servant. So they are Dasya Bhakti. They are Dasanudas of Vrajendra Nandan because they have love. They have Rati. The pre-qualification is they have love. Similarly, you have the Sakas, the dear friends of Krishna, like, Sudama, Sridama. I'm not referring to Sudama who ate chip rice. I'm talking about the cowherd boy. Sudama, Sridama. They have rasa. Their rati is Sakya in the sense that their own relationship with Krishna is in the mood of friendship. They do not look at Krishna as a superior. They look at him as inferior. They look at him sometimes as equal. Both. Inferior how? Equal how? Because sometimes you read about it in the Shastra that Krishna presses the lotus feet of his friends. They press his lotus feet and render some service. He climbs on their back. They climb on their back. He suddenly grabs a fruit which they're eating. We call it juta, right? No question of juta or kacha or whatever it is for him. He just grabs the fruit and he eats it right from the mouth. He just eats it. So he treats them on the same level and sometimes acts as if he is one step below. He is a servitor. Okay? This is Sakya, and they have Sakya Rati. They have intense love and fraternal friendship. These are boys, the cowherd boys of Braja. And then you have Vatsalya, which is parenthood, the love that is seen by Nanda Maharaj, the love that is seen in the heart of Yashoda Mai. This is, parental love. And this parental love, they say, is quite special. It is very special because, it really gives them a lot of authority over him. But there's some very special attitude as well, which is present in parental love. Okay? You can find all different rasas involved in parental love except for Madhurya, right? Only Madhurya rasa is superior. So, in terms of the parents of Krishna, they act as his superior. He becomes subservient. Okay? And they are expressing their love. So now what we are looking at is that basically there are different types of rati, different types of rasa in Raja, and everybody is connected to Krishna in different ways. And they have deep love, and this love is actually making Krishna subservient to them. It is actually making him subservient to them. He practically, it's very astonishing to say that he is the Samam Bonam, he is the most powerful. He lifts the Govardhan hill. He basically kills all the demons in Raja who come to assault and who come to disturb his pastimes, or rather, they actually add to the excitement of his pastimes. But at the same time, he becomes completely subservient to Yashoda Mai. She ties him up. She just carries him, she chastises him, makes him sit down, and he just sits and then sits down, and so on and so forth. There are so many different, relationships which Yashoda Mai has with Krishna, which is so fascinating to see in this particular regard, that he is very subservient. And the fact that he lifts Govardhan, the fact that he kills the demons, it does not disturb her. It is not disturbing her. It is not disturbing her. She does not get alluded or rather distracted from our ability to make him, subservient. Nanda Maharaj says, oh, bring my shoes. They are not distracted, which is pretty fascinating to see. So why am I saying this? I'm saying this because, Krishna is subservient to the devotion of his devotees. So since he is subservient, he cannot be the cause of bhakti, is the argument which is being posed by our acharyas. which is a very sweet argument. Since he is subservient, how can he be the cause? So bhakti is termed to be more superior. Bhakti Devi, who is the internal potency of Krishna, is considered to be superior to Krishna himself because he himself is subservient to the devotion shown by his devotees. So, who is superior in this and who is the cause of bhakti? That is the relationship that is being exposed and discussed in the first chapter. They are saying, who is giving bhakti? Who is giving bhakti? Is bhakti given by Krishna? They say, no, Krishna is subservient. Bhakti is superior to Krishna because he becomes subservient to his devotees. Okay? He is the summum bonum. He is all powerful, but then he keeps all his power aside and his devotees are not distracted. They want nothing about his power. And Yashodamai says, I will tie you up. I will do this. I will do that. The different, the mother gopis, who all have this parental affection for Krishna. They don't really view him as, the protector. When he leaves in the morning, it's pretty fascinating to see that Mother Yashoda, does all kinds of kavachas and makes him, pray, and all kinds of wonderful arrangements are being made to protect his transcendental body from the effect of the demons. She's afraid that he will come under harm. So she is not really looking at her son and being distracted by his display of power. There is no distraction in Vraja because this Madhurya, or the sweetness of Vraja, overwhelms all forms of power displayed by Krishna. Okay? And as a consequence, our acharyas are saying that bhakti itself is not coming, it's not subservient to Krishna. Bhakti is superior because he becomes subservient to bhakti. Right? Now, let us just understand it further because there's one beautiful verse from the Srimad Bhagavatam, which our acharyas have used to describe this. So the verse is Srimad Bhagavatam 10.4.4317. Okay, 10th canto, 43:17. Mallanam asanir nrinam nara varhas trinam smaro murtiman gopanam swajano satam shiti bujam shastasva pitroho sishuhu mrityurbojapater viraha avidushanam tattvam param yoginam Brishninam Paradevateti Vidito Ragam Gata Sagrajaha. The various groups of people in the wrestling arena. This is when Krishna enters the wrestling arena of Mathura. The various groups of people in the wrestling arena regarded Krishna in different ways when he entered it with his elder brother, Balaram. Now, we never spoke about Balaram when we were talking about the different personalities. Balaram is actually quite unusual. You see, Balaram is unusual in his relationship with Krishna because he acts as a parent. He has some Vatsalya Rati. He has some Vatsalya Rati because he is the older brother. He thinks that he must protect his younger brother. And then Mother Yashoda empowers him, saying that you protect your younger brother, Balaram, you should protect him because you're older. So he has this Vatsalya Rati. He has some amount of, I must protect him. I'm superior. I'm older. But he also has this extraordinary equality, which is Vishrambhava, where he feels that he is a friend. Because when Krishna, in the middle of the day, sometimes Krishna just slips away to, meet with Srimati Radharani, and the cowherd boys start searching for him on the fields of Vraja. When they don't find him, they become completely bereft of consciousness, where they cannot really exist even for a moment without his presence. So they are suddenly finding that he is not there. The anxiety in the heart will bring back his presence in their hearts. So he goes in the heart and creates a tremendous amount of anxiety, of separation, the moment he goes away. And at that point in time, Balaram, he kind of is the one who pacifies all the cowherd boys. He says, no, he will come back. You don't worry. He knows, Balaram knows everything, but at the same time, he pacifies them. Don't worry. He's going to come back. And Sridham and everybody, they become enthused again and they start playing with Balaram. And then Krishna slowly comes back into the pastime after some time. So Balaram has this unusual thing. And sometimes you find he is servitor Godhead. In other words, he's the first expansion of Krishna. He is non-different from Krishna. The color is different, and otherwise there's nothing different. He has his own gopis. In other words, he has his own associates in Vraja. He has his own friends. He mixes with Krishna's friends, but he also has his own friends. And he basically, Balaram, is very, very different in the sense that, he is a servitor Godhead, But at the same time, the sweetness of Vraja, the Madhurya, is such that Balaram is overwhelmed with the sweetness of Vraja, where he does not, he is constantly serving, but at the same time, for him, he also has this, what do you call it? This the fraternal love as well as the Vatsalya Rati, because he has to protect his younger brother and so on and so forth, dominating his feelings. Okay, even though the acharyas do say that he has his own rasa dance. When he returned back from Mathura, Krishna said, Krishna first sent Uddhava. He sent Uddhava Prabhu. He said, go pacify the most confidential associate, pacify Nanda Maharaj, pacify Yashoda Maharani, because, they are bereft of my association. Uddhava Prabhu first comes and he tries to pacify. But then Uddhava is a Gyani Bhakta. This was a very special arrangement which was made by Krishna for Uddhava to experience Braja Bhakti. So he sends him, and Uddhava, starts explaining to Nanda Maharaj that this is Narayan. Narayan has his own mercy. He has, four-arm form and so on and so forth. And Nanda Maharaj could not comprehend anything. He says, what are you talking about? How can my son be the spiritual master of the whole world? He steals. He's a thief. He is a thief. He steals. He becomes angry. He has all kinds of desires. Throughout the day, we have to feed him because he's always hungry. Do not call him anything other than my son, because I don't understand that. They cannot comprehend. So Uddhava Prabhu comes, and then he is amazed because he isn't coming in touch with this Vraja Bhakti for the first time. So there's a special mercy of Krishna. So how could he pacify someone when he himself is not clear or does not know the special qualities of the Vraja Bhaktas? So Uddhava returns, but then he has been touched by Vraja Bhakti. This is the Shuddha Bhakti Adhikar. The reason why I'm sharing this is because just understand and just try to comprehend the extraordinary mercy and potency that has been given to us by our acharyas. Okay, I'm assuring you, after actually knowing this or fully able to comprehend, if one does not take up the process of devotional service seriously, then one is actually, not in the human existence. They're probably blind or whatever it is. If Uddhava, who is a cousin, who is a close associate, okay, his age was such that Krishna used to look upon him as a son. Okay, Krishna used to look upon him as a son, but his closeness to Krishna was such that he did not have adhikar for Shuddha Bhakti, the Vraja Bhakti. We have been given that adhikar by Chaitanya Mahaprabhu through the process of connection through the parampara. Please understand and comprehend that Sri Uddhava had to travel from Mathura to come to Vrindavan, to Braj, to understand this extraordinary potency which has been given by Mahaprabhu so easily, and Nityananda practically used to distribute it on the streets of Navadip Dham. He used to cry and mourn. He used to practically roll on the ground when people do not chant. Can you believe what we have been given, that Sri Uddhava did not have this and he had to come and get it? Please understand this. Do not ever think that what we have been given is light. This is Shastra, this is Tattva. When you read the 10th canto, it becomes obvious that Uddhava did not have what we were so easily given. What we were so easily given, it is being distributed in New York, it's being distributed in Chicago, worldwide, wherever you go. How amazing is this mercy of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu? There is no one who can give this. So, Uddhava, when he came, he could not comprehend the feelings of the Brajavasis. So he goes back. But then he has received mercy because he has come in touch with sadhus. Real sadhus who hold, Shuddha Bhakti with all kinds of wonderful rasas. He has come in touch with all these wonderful rasas where he develops this aspiration. And then Balaram comes. Balaram is sent as a second person by Krishna to pacify the residents of Braja. And Balaram is a Brajavasi. He is fully familiar with the feelings. He is fully familiar with what Shuddha Bhakti is. He comes and he pacifies all of them. At that time, it is said that he has his own rasa dance. He has his own associates. He has his rasa dance. Very separate. No connection with Krishna. But Balaram's rasa dance is not so important for Balaram. Balaram's greatest pleasure is in offering service to Krishna. You see, he is the servitor Godhead. He carries Krishna's service so deeply in his heart that his own display of rasa dance and so on is secondary to him. It has absolutely no meaning in his heart. The meaning or the rasa, the sambandha nuga, or he is subservient to the specific relationship that he has with Krishna more than anybody else. So Balaram is very special in that sense that even though he is 100% the same, he is different because he carries the sambandha of being a servant. He is in Vatsalya Rati, he is in Sakya Rati, and then he, accepts Krishna's, he wants to experience Dasya Rati, so he becomes Lakshman. You see? By age, he is superior to Krishna and Raja Bhakti. He expands as Lord Ramachandra in Ramayana. Okay? So in Tattva, Lord Rama is the same as Balaram because he is the expansion. But he expands as Lakshman so that he could experience this extraordinary, exclusive Dasya Bhakti which Lakshman had. Extraordinary. You see, even though they were brothers. So one has to understand that what we have been given is very special. Now we are talking about it further. The translation, 10th canto, 43:17. The various groups of people in the wrestling arena regarded Krishna in different ways when he entered it with his elder brother. The wrestlers saw Krishna as a lightning bolt. You see, it's all about relationship. When we see someone, okay, our actions toward that person is dependent on the identity we assume. Okay, we may act in one way with a friend. We may act another way with a brother. We may act another way with the spouse, the daughter, the sons, and so on and so forth, because we established the bridge of relationship, the identity. So now Krishna is Balaram are entering into the wrestling arena in Mathura. The wrestlers saw Krishna as a lightning bolt. They saw him as a lightning bolt. Oh my God, here is Krishna, and he is going to punish us. The ordinary men, they saw him as someone who was worthy of following, as the best of men. The women as Cupid incarnate, because he was extraordinarily, both of them are extraordinarily good looking. Who could be more beautiful than Krishna? The cowherd men as a relative. The impious rulers as a chastiser. His parents as a child. The king of Bhoja as death. The unlearned as the universal form. The yogis as the absolute truth, and the Vrishnis as the supreme worshipable deity. So many different relationships. If he just enters into the arena, the wrestling arena, there are so many people who are working, and then they're all looking, and then they're all able to basically, have different relationships with Krishna, and they're all thinking on those respects. So the specific relationship, as Prabhupada explains, we like certain mangoes because of the rasa, and that's a relationship. And similarly, we are connected to Krishna in a specific relationship, and we have this bond. And then now we are looking at it that everyone has their special connection to God. Even the so-called atheist, Kamsa, had this relationship with Krishna as death personified, because Kala, time, is Krishna. But that is the relationship that an atheist has. You see, even an atheist has a relationship. What to say of, Vraja Bhakta, or someone who is on the path of bhakti? Okay, so now why is our Acharya, why is Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti talking about it? He's saying that everybody has their own relationship. We explained this earlier on. And because they all have their different relationships, and those relationships are basically caused by bhakti, and those relationships specifically favorable, right? Anukulya, not pratikul, anukulya, right? Anukulyena Krishna Anushilanam. So that is Uttama Bhakti. So everybody has Anukulya, favorable links with Krishna, and those favorable links to Krishna, specifically the Vraja Bhaktas, make Krishna subservient to them. And since they are subservient, since he is subservient to their mood of bhakti, then bhakti is superior to Krishna. Krishna is not the cause of bhakti. Bhakti is superior to Krishna. Okay? So now they are establishing the fact that bhakti is superior to Krishna, and Krishna is not the cause of bhakti. Bhakti is independent of Krishna. Krishna becomes subservient to bhakti. Okay? Pretty amazing. Now let's look at the verse from Srimad Bhagavatam. The Lord is not, Savai Pumsam Parodharmo Yato Bhaktir Adokchaje Ahaituki Apratihata Yayatma Suprasadati. the supreme occupation. This is Srimad Bhagavatam 2.6. The supreme occupation, dharma, for all humanity is that by which men can attain to loving devotional service unto the transcendental Lord. Such service must be unmotivated and uninterrupted to completely satisfy the self. Unmotivated, okay? Unmotivated is anyabhilashita shunyam. There should be no other abhilasha. Anya abhilashita shunyam. Jnana karma dinavritam. There cannot be jnana, there cannot be a motive of karma where I am doing this so that Krishna can give me this, or I am doing this so that I can be relieved from my problems, I can attain mukti, different types of liberation. So this is completely free of all forms of karma and jnana and any other kind of motive, unmotivated. Then comes the statement of uninterrupted. Uninterrupted bhakti is prema bhakti. Okay? And it is said here in this particular verse in Srimad Bhagavatam in 2.6. It says, the supreme occupation of all humanity is that by which men can attain to loving devotional service unto the transcendental Lord. They are saying loving devotional service, and such service they are giving two qualities: unmotivated, jnana karmadi anavritam, uninterrupted, prema bhakti. Only prema bhakti can satisfy the self. That is the conclusion of 2.6 in Srimad Bhagavatam. There is no other satisfaction. Uninterrupted quality of bhakti can only come in prema. Uninterrupted. I gave you the example of the cowherd boys. He is present, so it's extraordinary loving exchanges because he is present in front of them. He disappears from their view and they go into great anxiety. He enters into the heart. The anxiety itself is a part of their separation. This is uninterrupted. This is really uninterrupted. And that is only a gift of Krishna Prema. So they are giving a definition here of Prema Bhakti or Uttama Bhakti. Okay, now it's actually 9:20. I've gone way beyond what I intended to, but I just wanted to touch upon this particular aspect of the quality of Bhakti as being completely independent of even Krishna. We spoke a bit in Sri Harinam Chintamani saying that there can be Karma Unmukha Sukriti. There can be Jnana Unmukha Sukriti. One can have Sukriti which motivates them or comes due to the performance of karmakandic rituals. There can be Sukriti or pious activities or piety, which is subtle currency is piety, that is accumulated by the performance of activities that are associated with jnana. Okay. Now then comes Bhakti Unmukha Sukriti, and the Bhakti Unmukha Sukriti cannot be explained as to where and how it happened. Where is the origin of Bhakti Unmukha Sukriti? Then we call it Agyata Sukriti. We really did not know. Sri Narad Muni did not know that he was eating the leftovers of Bhakti Vedantas, and that would be the result of his extraordinary birth in the subsequent lifetime or his progress in devotional service. It was not known. It was not known at that point in time. Okay? This is Bhakti Unmukha Sukriti, where it's Agyata Sukriti. It is not known because the motivation is not to gain something, but the motivation is to simply serve. It just happens. So it appears that it is actually quite independent. And how does it appear and how does it happen? Chaitanya Charitamrita, I'm going to end with this verse. Sri Chaitanya Charitamrita has a nice verse, and I just want to read it. Okay? And that particular verse is explaining that. Okay, this is Madhya Leela 2283, Chaitanya Charitamrita. Krishna Bhakti Janma Mula, Hai Sadhu Sangha. Krishna Preme Janme, Teno Punha, Mukhya Anga. The root cause of devotional service to Lord Krishna is association with advanced devotees, even when one's dormant love for Krishna awakens. Association with devotees is still most essential. Even for a Bhava Bhakta, association with devotees is most essential. So what is being said here? It is being said here that bhakti is being given by those who have bhakti, and the advanced devotees who have a deep, deep culture of bhakti in their hearts have the ability to deposit that bhakti in our hearts. So Krishna is subservient to this bhakti. He is not the cause of bhakti. Bhakti is independent. It is controlled by the sadhus. So this is actually the first shower of nectar explaining that sadhu sangha, specifically sadhu sangha with those who have the ability to offer tattva darshan, those who have seen the truth, advanced devotees, then That particular sadhutan sangha is very beneficial because they have the ability to infuse us with enthusiasm. Okay, so I'm going to stop here, and in the next session, which is on Monday, I guess today is Thursday, on Monday we'll take up, probably a little more discussion on this if required, or I might just go into Adav Shraddha, which is the second shower of nectar. Let me see if you have any questions. I can answer those. Okay, the first question which I have here is that is it that bhakti can be given by those who have bhakti, or is it independent to that too? Very good question. Can it be given by those who have bhakti? It is actually quite independent. It can be given by the desire. It can be given, for example, when the very mischievous personalities who actually put the prostitute in front of Srila Haridas Thakur to defame him, to cause some disturbance to his bhajan. At that point in time, he continued chanting. He continued taking deep shelter of the holy names. He kept chanting. And it is said that the chanting went on continuously for 3 days. And the prostitute, she heard the chanting. You see, she was able to audibly hear and receive the chanting in her ears. But that, in sense, cannot cause bhakti in her heart for her to be able to take up devotional service. That has simply put her in a position of being able to participate in Kirtanam and Shravanam. Srila Haridas Thakur, his exalted Namacharya, is performing Kirtanam, and this lady is sitting there and she is hearing. Okay, she is probably as embarrassed as most people would be to be in the presence of a saint with wrong motives, and she is hearing. But then how did she become initiated? Because the process of being initiated cannot have happened unless Srila Haridas Thakur was praying for mercy to be given to her. So it appears that this is dependent on those who carry such potency. They are deeply compassionate, and then they pray that someone else should receive mercy. And that prayer, when it is received by someone who is positioning themselves properly to receive such mercy, then it happens. I hope that answered your question. Mahaprabhu asked Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu asked Sri Nityananda Ram, go and distribute. What was he telling Sri Nityananda Ram when he said, go and distribute? Nityananda Ram was just not distributing. He was practically giving adhikar, he was giving sukriti, he was giving everything, and including the fact that he was distributing prema bhakti. How else would the others have gotten the mercy? When we read Chaitanya Bhagavat, when we read Chaitanya Mangal, we read Chaitanya Charitamrita, we see that in the presence of Lord Nityananda, because Lord Nityananda, his heart was so filled with love for Lord Chaitanya that it was overflowing. And because it was overflowing, those who were in proximity became infected because they were favorable. Okay? They became infected with prema. So there was a distribution with Lord Nityananda did. He just walked and he gave, but he also gave adhikar. His glance was enough. He gave adhikar, he gave sukriti, he gave everything, and he qualified them. You see? And someone asked Srila Prabhupada, saying that we don't have basic religiosity. Since we don't have basic religiosity, how did we position ourselves to be able to go above basic religiosity? Srila Prabhupada said, I gave you basic religiosity. So where is that particular potency coming from? That's Lord Nityananda's potency, which Srila Prabhupada carried. He gave everybody religiosity. You know, in the Western world, where was their adhikar? Otherwise, he gave them and then he qualified them. What did Jagai and Madai do? They beat up Lord Nityananda. What did Lord Chaitanya do? He first took away sinful reactions because Lord Nityananda had already bestowed mercy. You see, Lord Nityananda had bestowed mercy. So how is this bestowing of mercy? It's being done by those who have mercy, and that is Lord Nityananda. Okay, I don't see any more questions. I think I've concluded the answer as well to this question by Kirtida Mataji. So thank you so much for joining me, and I hope you're as enthused about attending future sessions of Sri Madhurya Kadambini as you were with Sri Harinam Chintamani. I'm very excited because this is practically taking me through different scriptures. I'm looking at many verses, and I find it quite enlivening. And I hope you would also experience the same, and both of us, all of us, can experience a higher level of being able to chant nicely and serve Srila Prabhupada. Srila Prabhupada ki Jai.